Comprehensive Secondary School, RBC Young Leaders.
You asked for more live and relevant talk shows, and we heard you. 88.5 Super FM presents House Guest, a brand new, fresh fortnightly feature airing at 10 a.m. House Guest will showcase a cadre of professionals from doctors and entrepreneurs to the next door friendly neighbor. So tune in as we network the community with a platform for open, frank, and informative discussion. Only on Super FM, your community radio station.
So, good morning, listeners. Thank you again for joining us today.
Hi, you wonderful. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to those in the radio land. Good morning to you, Miss Bojemet.
And thank you so much, Inspector Rainey, for agreeing to join me here with this, what we can even look at a controversial topic. So I'm hoping
it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure being here. I mean, I believe heavily in reciprocity, and you were my guest a few weeks ago, and I think this was one of the most informative shows that I've had. So I mean, when you approached me to be part of your show, and especially given the topic that you want to discuss, although I'm not expert in that field, but I felt I had no choice but to reciprocate. So yes, it's a pleasure being here.
Okay, thank you so very much. So before we move on, I would like to extend advanced birthday greetings to a very good friend of mine, very dear friend, who was once my guest here, Yanika Williams. I think she's at Clinton Mason, our National Youth Council's president. So a blessed birthday in advance to you, Yanika, if you're listening. And to all our viewers, my colleagues out there, good morning and have a blessed day. So before we move on, Inspector Renee, if you'd like to shout out to anybody, say
yeah, well, I always take the time out to shout out my staff. I believe I have some of the best police officers. So let me say big up and good morning to my wonderful staff at both the Soufrière and Choiseul Police Station. Let me say good morning to my supervisors at Soufrière, Corporal Octave, Sergeant Mark, Corporal Fauché, Corporal Isidore, and Corporal Charlie. Let me say a fantastic good morning to you and your team, and at Choiseul, Sergeant Smith, who is leading the fort there, because as the inspector, I tell people I have no outside child. Both Soufrière and Choiseul, even though my office is, in Soufrière, I treat them both equally. And let me say good morning to Sergeant Smith and his team, Corporal Pascal, Corporal Flavius, Corporal Sonny. Fantastic good morning to your team, and thank you for the tremendous support that you continue to give me on a daily basis to, ensure that Soufrière and Choiseul remain the safest communities on the island.
Indeed, for that. And thank you for the good job that you're doing, officers. Continue the good work amidst all the challenges that you face. Okay. So this morning, our topic is men and their way of communicating. So men and their way of communicating. Do you think that men have a special way of communicating?
Yeah, well, you see, before we go into the topic and focus on men, it is important that we understand the definition of communication. And I've, read up a few, and then the one that jumps at me is this one. Communication is the successful conveying or sharing of ideas and feelings. And what's the important word there is the successful conveying. And the question is, between men and women, who are better able to communicate and communicate effectively? do men communicate? Do we always communicate effectively? And like I told you, I am no psychologist. I am no, and I will not pretend to be. But experience have taught me that we men, us men, do a terrible job at communicating our feelings, communicating our emotions, communicating, you know, exactly what we want to say, and how we want to say it. So I believe us men do a terrible job at that, in that, you know, because of the way we have been socialized and acculturated, as individuals, the society expects so much from the man. And even from, the Bible, it tells you that, the man is the head of the house. And to be the head of the house, or to be the head of any organization or institution, you must have this level of assertiveness, this level of firmness, this level of control. As a police officer, what's important for us is what we describe as command presence. So an effective leader must have what we describe as command presence. So from the time you walk into a room or you engage, a group of persons, you must take command of the situation before you even utter a word, right? So just the mere fact of the way you carry yourself, right? Your command presence communicate, what your intentions are and what kind of person you are. So as men, we are expected, society expects us to be that tough, solid, rock hard, solid individual who is able to take charge of any situation, no matter how severe or serious or minor it is, that we should take charge of that. And, because of that, that could be both positive and negative. And and there are times that we must understand that we are humans and we have feelings too. And that, it's important that when we have issues that are affecting us, that we are able to effectively communicate it to the parties that we interact with. So, yeah, so I believe it is important that men understand that communication is important, but it's not just communicating, because I have spoken about the definition of communication, but there could be both effective and ineffective communication, where your message does not reach the receiver. So you, as a sender, it doesn't reach the receiver, and that has a lot to do with, one, how you structure your information, and two, how you want people to perceive you. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So, for example, and it's important to highlight that this month is Men's Mental Health Month, right? And I think the topic is very opportune.
Yes, so this is why I was letting you finish, because I had this there to see. This is why I chose this topic.
Yes.
That June is Men's Mental Health Awareness
This
Month.
yes.
A time dedicated to raising awareness about the unique mental challenges men face and encouraging them to seek help. This month aims to break the stigma surrounding men's mental health, promote open conversations, and provide resources for those in need. So I felt it very fitting to have, and not just the topic, but the person with the topic. Because you see, a lot of police officers, especially,
Yes.
are out there. They have to communicate with the public. And there are so many, I would say, rumors or whatever happens goes on. And it's being said that, again, you said it earlier, that because of this assertiveness, and when you reach there, it's about your body speaks before you,
Yeah.
that people will say that police officers abuse their power.
course.
So right now, this is why we're talking about communication and men, especially, because we're not saying that police officers are not only men, yes, but we want to show, if it is true, we're coming around to show whether it's true, or if we have some research to show that men communicate differently. We're not saying that women communicate better, because I heard you say that earlier. I wanted you to finish to come on board. We're not saying that women communicate better than men. No. We're saying that men communicate differently.
Yes.
So we need to be careful how we say
How we
it.
structure.
Yes. Differently from men. because you may come in here, like I was reading earlier, that it says that sometimes you'll find certain research says that women communicate with their emotions and the men communicate more with reality. So
With
it's like
action.
right. So it's almost like if you're reading a book, there is fiction and non-fiction.
Mhm.
So men are fiction. They go with reality. They go with, okay, why are you so sad? A man will ask a woman, why are you so sad? And the woman will be, you asking me why am I so sad? Don't you know? Because just yesterday she asked you for a shoe. You did not buy that shoe for her.
Okay.
And she's pouting and you're asking her, you know, why are you so sad? Whatever. But this man is like, yesterday is done. Why am I, you know, why are you going over this again?
You know, yeah.
So he is expecting her to say, why are you so sad? I am sad because I didn't get the shoe. Just give it to me straight up. And most times this is a man for you. But the woman now, in her emotions, wants you to just not be so practical, but go down and say, but babe, what's wrong? What's going on with you? So this is the difference in certain things that I have read. So
Yeah, so and it's true. And it's hard to get a man to really communicate his or her feelings. And you spoke about, you know, from a police perspective, our experience as relates to communication and how and what we see. And in my discussion in this deliberation today, I want to not only speak about the organization, how we communicate with members of the public, and you know our level of customer service, but also want to speak about our experience as law enforcement as relates to parents, especially fathers, the way they communicate with the children and how that can impact, you know, the that child's ability to interact and he himself, you know, be able to communicate with other persons. So, and you know, when you mentioned the police communicating, what jumped at me was the most recent videos of the police officers trying to engage, well, two situations where the police, and they, on both situations, it involves male officers. How the first one being during a traffic check where they stopped an individual and requesting that, well, asking about the tinting of his vehicle and asking him to turn off the engine of his car. I think that from my end, I mean, I try not to speak too much about it because I did not see the video from the inception, how it started. And you never see that. You only get to the point where it escalates, you know, and that is when the videotaping begins to happen. And all you see is the response at that point by the police officer. But an officer who understands communication, effective communication, and effective customer service would understand that he or she would have achieved and accomplished the same objective without being so overly aggressive, but just being professional and assertive. So, for example, we know it is common practice that the police during a traffic check will stop you. The police may receive information at any point in time, you know, as relates to a suspicious vehicle, a vehicle, or the conducting irregular checks. And the police would give you a number one stop sign, which is, you know, asking you to stop your vehicle. And then now to pull up, and then they're supposed to come to you and introduce themselves in a professional manner. Good day, I am Inspector Rennie from the Soufriere Police Station. We are conducting traffic check. And as a result, sir, we have received the information that, you know, you may be in possession of illegal drugs or firearm. And as a result, we are going to ask you to present your documents. However, in order for the safety of yourself and the officers, would like to switch off your engines, right? And step out of the car, you know. And I don't think if it's done that way, I don't think that individual would respond or react in a negative way towards the officer. And then if there's some resistance, you now take the assertive posture, but always remain professional. So I have spoken to you once. I am going to repeat myself. So I have given you the instruction to turn off your engine and step out of the car, or present your vehicle license or vehicle insurance for inspection. The Traffic Act makes it an offense for you not to present the relevant information, also an offense to have tinted windows. So kindly, sir, I'm going to ask you to step out of the car. Let me conduct, for the safety of myself and the officer, conduct a check. You know, but I think and again, we're going to go to communication, how you communicate. And again, the bigger question is, what was the mental state of that officer prior to him engaging that individual? It could be a case where he mentally was dealing with some situation, and now, you know, because he's getting some resistance from the driver, it's, you know, it's losing control. And most time we communicate, you know, in a particular, because of our mental state at the time, you know, and most times it's not in a nice way. It's not in a nice way.
Yeah, because that's why they tell you that communication is not, when you speak, it's not what you say, but also how you say it.
Yes.
So again, you're talking about you being in the mental space for that.
Yep.
Very good. I'm happy to hear that, because it is very important. And when we were looking at men's mental health, they said that there are resources and it's very difficult for men to open up to get assistance. But I'm hoping that the powers that be are listening. I'm hoping that the powers that be are listening, that it is very important for jobs like policing, social work, just doing the helping profession. It's very important that these professionals are debriefed. It's very important that counselors, psychologists are placed on hand to deal with the fire officers, the police officers, social workers, persons dealing with trauma, the nurses, the doctors. Once you're dealing with some level of trauma, or you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, you're working with people, that it is very important to debrief, to have counselors, to have people on hand to debrief you. So I'm very happy to hear that sometimes working on your mental space and you have to communicate, it can be very difficult. So great point, and I'm hoping that powers that they say that are hearing, so that the resources that are necessary are given. Not only vehicles, police officers don't need only vehicles and weapons, but they also need the
Yes,
debriefing, they need
yes.
the counseling.
But even more importantly, Miss Bodiamet, is not only requesting the services, but educating the officers or the individuals on what are the indicators that, hey, there's a need for you to debrief, there's a need for you to go to counseling, you know, the changes that you would experience. Because I could tell you, as a police officer of over 26 years, you see all kinds of things and you encounter all kinds of things. And what that does, it numbs you to a certain extent. You lose that emotional connectedness with situations. So, for example, I would walk on a crime scene now, whereas, you know, before you would feel, you know, all disgusted, you know, and even some level of trauma. Now, you know, it's like normal, and that should never be normal.
No.
Seeing somebody body on the floor should never be normal, you know. But that is what the work, being in there for so many years, has done to me, you know. Even when I worked in my with the crime management department, one of my roles was to do crime analysis and to review on a daily basis all the crimes that were recorded on the island. So you read the details of every single crime on the island, and it almost got me paranoid at one point, where, you know, you did not want to go to the beach because, you know, this morning you read a report where at X beach, this person was held at gunpoint and this happened and that happened, and like you at the beach, but you're not enjoying the beach. You're more focused on who's around you and what's happening and, all that kind of thing, So, like you said, it's important that there be opportunities for you to, one, identify what are the indicators of being, stressed and being, needing that counseling and needing that debriefing to exhale and release that stress.
But even then, I find that some persons don't realize or even think that they need counseling. So if something is put in place where you get routine counseling, like officers every 2 weeks or every other week.
Yes.
I mean, if you go through something really traumatic, the emergency of it is you have the person there.
Yes.
But make it routine that every other week or every 2 weeks you must go to a debriefing session.
And I agree.
Some people would never go
because we do have a program. I think with the ministry, it's called the EAP, the Employee Assistance Program. And the reality is, I don't think it's been advertised, as often as it should, because even a lot of officers don't know of its existence, and as a manager, you would see the difference in the behavior of some of your staff, and then you would call them in and say, hey, are you okay? Because you realize there's a dip in productivity, you realize an increase in sick leave, the level of aggressiveness, so many things, and then you call them in and hey, are you okay? Is everything okay? And you'd be surprised to know all the different situations that they're dealing with, but they don't want to communicate that with you because, as men, like I said, as men, we believe that, hey, we are always supposed to have that macho image.
Yes.
And as a result, we don't want to communicate it. I don't want the boss to know my business. I don't want the police people to know my business.
And the counselor, I don't want the counselor to
And
know my
yes,
business.
I don't want the counselor to know my business.
So-
And we hold all that in. Right.
It's interesting that you say that. I was reading, and Sheldon Lionel said, I shout out to you, Sheldon Lionel, whoever you are, men react with silence. And he was like, yes. So I was reading an article that says men's communication 101, right?
Yes.
And he was saying that in one of his excerpts I read earlier, he was saying like, it's almost like, okay, in a vehicle, you see when you start your vehicle, you see your gas light come on, not your gas light, your check engine light come on, right? And it's almost like a man, like, we ladies, we don't know too much about vehicles. So
y'all don't make it your duty. Y'all don't make it your duty to know about your vehicle, because the things y'all supposed to know, y'all do all the relevant research. Y'all know how to go into that phone and get all the information y'all want. But for the car, I have business. That's the man's job. That's the man's job.
So when the check engine light comes on as a woman, you would run to your mechanic, you'd run to your husband, you'd run to somebody who's knowledgeable to find out, what is going on, why is that light on, and so on, because we're very cautious when it comes to these things.
Yeah.
But men, most times, what he is saying that a man is similar to the opposite of that. Sometimes you see that light come on, that check engine light come on, you say, must be just like
a sensor,
sensor, whatever, and you ignore it. And then based on what he was saying is that you can go on for months, a long period with that check engine light comes on and nothing happens. And one day, lo and behold, your vehicle will just break down along the side of the road. So that is in comparison to how men deal with the issues, that they see the signs, they know it's there. And what he's saying is that men will say, you know what, I'm okay. You know what, I'm okay. And they keep saying and convincing themselves that they're okay. That it's okay. They could see something is going on. They could see something.
That's even more important about our health, man.
Yes.
We don't want to go to doctors.
Right. I'm okay. Just a little bellyache. I'm okay. You see your lady sleeping more often, or something is happening in your relationship. Maybe she's tired. That's okay, because you don't really want to deal with the issues at hand. So this is one of the things he's saying, that men don't come out and deal with the issues until it is really too late. And he was saying that, and something important again I read, he said that even when a man feels frustrated and he lashes out, because of that frustration, because he has not dealt with that pent-up frustration and anger, and he lashes out because of it. It's still that he would come back and think, I should not have lashed out, and whatever, whether it be at work, whether it be in your relationship. And after lashing out, he would come back and maybe even apologize, take the blame for that lashing out, and go back into that zone for that few days of, that guilt of lashing out, and apologize for it and go back to being calm, and then it happens again, like a cycle. Because whatever caused him to lash out, he has not
dealt with it. Yes. So
it's very important. So I'm reading Men's Communication 101. So I think it's a very good read. So persons who are listening, have a good read. Yes. So
and I was just reading some article myself, and I said, yes, men and women often communicate in different ways, though these differences are not absolute and vary based on individual personalities and social contexts. Generally, women tend to focus on building and maintaining relationships through communication, often using rapport talk to share feelings and build connection. Men, on the other hand, may use communication more to achieve concrete goals, demonstrate status, and exchange information, often using report talk. Okay, and then it goes down to speaks about here are the different breakdowns of verbal communication. Men are often perceived as more direct and assertive in their communication style, while women may use more tentative language. So we believe, it's our way. For us men, it's our way. We don't bend. It's our way or the highway. And especially for our children. And I think that's where some children tend to be more comfortable with their mother, especially young boys. They feel they could communicate because dad, you come to dad about a situation, and and hey, you're a man, you need to behave like a man, stop that nonsense kind of. But mommy on the other hand will sit down, hey, talk to me, what's the problem, what's bothering you, what's on your mind, and for us men, we need to understand that, because our sons look up to us, and they expect us to have the answers. Right? And then when you shun them out and you cut them out, then they will go to somebody who will give them an answer. And sometimes it may not be mommy, it may be somebody outside the home. So it is important that men understand that it's not always your way. It's not always your instructions, but it's important that you listen.
And society also, growing up, you'd hear, big boys don't cry, and you have to be tough and all. You don't have to be. Rena Butcher, shout out to you, whoever you are. Thank you for listening.
Good morning, Rena.
Love the point about men's health, and men, they ignore the signs until it's too late. Okay, so these are our comments, and thank you for them. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, well, Rena Butcher is a nurse, so she would know about, a lot. She would have dealt with a lot of situations involving men. But yes, like I said,
So I'm going back to the article, and it says that there's a real stereotype about men that we are completely unaware of our own feelings and see our feelings as unnecessary and non-existent. Some men I see in my practice feel that way, and others don't. Okay, do you think there's any truth in that men are not aware of their feelings? They're not sure how they feel?
Yeah, well, again, going back to the role of the man, from one societal perspective, from a biblical perspective, being the head of the house, men believe that their focus should be the maintaining of the family, providing. They are providers, protectors, and we don't have time to cry. That's how we feel. That hey, right now I need to pay the bills. Right now, we need to provide. I need to provide a home for my family. I need to be able to allow my kids to be able to be transported to and from school. So right now I need to hustle. And
have
you-
time to
I don't have time to cry. I don't have time to, worry about my problems. It's about doing what I need to do to take care of my family. So, and because of that, again, we don't communicate our feelings to our partner. We don't communicate our feelings to our children. We don't communicate our feelings to our friends. The question is, how many men speak to other men about the challenges and situations they're going through? Just imagine as a man, you get to go well, you'll go and tell a partner, you get to go well, And tomorrow, you're the topic of the tongue, boy, hey, Renee, I will go well, you see, you're getting small and you ain't eating, that kind of thing, especially if you have a big ego, you have a confident ego, so because of that, we hold it in and it builds up, and that is why the rate of suicide is so much higher among men than women, because men feel that, hey,
They have nowhere to turn.
there's nowhere to
speak to.
That's how they feel, but that's not the truth. Is that the truth, Ms. Bodymet, from your experience? Because the
Well,
same avenues available to women should be available to men in terms of expressing your emotions, your situations, your problems.
And as you rightfully said earlier, the difference between men and women is that women have their support groups. A lot of women have, just bear with me.
Mhm.
So a lot of women have their support groups where a woman is a talker.
Yeah, although I believe women have their genders too. But anyway.
Let's not go there. So women are talkers, most women. They have their support group. They will speak to their mothers. They will speak to a best friend. They have somebody to go to. But most men, because of this ego, okay, men have a huge ego. So just going with me. And because of that ego and that machoism, they don't really want, I don't want people to know my business. So even if I have my partner, I will not go and tell my partner, because in my partner's eyes, I look weak. I'm not manly. And
Yes.
next thing I know, I won't tell my partner that, and tomorrow he hitting on my woman because whatever.
You know.
These are some of the thoughts that go to men, because
Yes.
I've been around, I listen, I speak to persons, and men, it's very difficult for them to open up to someone. And it's not that there are not persons around to help, but it's because of how they feel, that ego, that machoism, that, like you said, I'm the head of the household, I'm the provider, I'm the fixer, and everything. So it's very hard to, how do I come down from that?
Yeah,
How do
so
I come down from
just
that?
to add to that, Ms. Bodymet, I mean, women too are responsible to an extent to men holding, in stuff, because sometimes, a man goes and opens up to his partner, about something that he's facing, his girlfriend or wife or somebody, and then there you guys are in a problem. It tell you, women know how to mash up a man's ego, and they will say, "Oh, you can't do this, and you can't do that, and you're a little boy, and you are this, and you are that," and all kind of words come out of the mouth when they are upset.
I would somewhat agree, but let us understand that when persons speak, and it happens both sides, and when that happens, most times it happens that this person speaks out of a place of hurt, and that person speaks out of a place of anger. I understand that it hurts when it happens. I'm not saying no. And okay, let me just, whilst we're speaking, it was coming to me. I was thinking that you know your partner, right? And yes, everybody must have a supportive person, but you have to be realistic. If you have somebody, you have been with the person, you know the person, and you know the person's mental capacity. Um, if you find this person is a very emotional person, and you're going through something that would really, that person cannot handle, so to speak, do you think it's right to go to this person with this issue? Because get where I'm coming to. For example, you know that your wife is already a little paranoid because she feels okay. You may not come home because of the work you do, the risk it entails and all. Do you think it's okay to go and tell her that, I was shot at today? I was shot at today. I had to run and jump over something, and just saying.
Yeah.
Or for example, you know that maybe she had a trauma when she was growing up, that God forbid she lost a child in an accident or whatever.
Mhm.
That situation happened today. Do you think it's okay to go to her
Sure.
and tell her? So that's what I'm saying, that we have to recognize sometimes what we can give in to our partners. And this is why we're saying that it's better to go to a professional, certain things, to go to a professional, to let the professional
Yeah.
handle.
You know-
Personal issues, yes, we communicate that,
Yeah.
but certain things, it's sometimes maybe too much for your partner to handle.
I agree. I agree. And I have my perception of psychiatrists. I always believe psychiatrists are people who themselves have major issues and they are trying to get answers. So they go and study psychology or psychiatry so that they could understand their problem for you. So that is my perception. I always believe that, hey, they have somebody. But again, I think it's important to talk. But I believe some of them have the worst problems. And they can't fix their problem, but they want to fix yours.
Let's go to the comments. So Mr. Sheldon Daniel was asking, on duty, in quick response, how do you differentiate between mental health and drug use? All right, so reading from Google, mental health refers to a person's overall psychological well-being, while drug use can encompass both recreational or prescribed use of substances. Okay, so drug use, there are some signs and symptoms where it is saying that mental health, you will be it is hard to see it with the bare eyes.
Yeah, it's
very
difficult. It's difficult.
to
Yes.
see it with your bare eyes, and it will have to take a professional to differentiate.
Yeah.
Because some symptoms of drug use will mimic itself
Yeah. As mental. Yes.
health.
Yeah.
Because this is why most times they have like what you call marijuana induced psychosis and
Mhm.
so on.
Yes.
So after taking that drug, it takes over your body, takes over your being, and makes you behave in a way that you're incoherent and everything is going haywire.
Yeah, and
right?
I agree to that, Ms. Bodimit, because in my experience in Soufriere, what I have realized, as much as we have, a lot of young persons who suffer mental illness, a lot of the mental illness is triggered by drug abuse.
Mhm. It is.
It's
most-
triggered
most
by
of it.
drug abuse,
Yeah.
and so those persons will begin to behave erratically, and when they consume, whether it's alcohol or whether it's cannabis or whether it's harder drugs, and then you at that point, there is no clear way of differentiating what exactly, because I could recall a situation, where an individual I know him to be, an odd guy. He's a troublesome little boy, but he's okay. Not, we always talk, and there was one situation where, after an event, he got involved in a fight. And I was like, and we tried restraining that guy, and I could tell wow, like the guy was demon possessed, grabbing on things and screaming and holding on things and refusing to, and that's somebody I normally talk to, and it's so at that point you're trying to determine what is wrong with him. That's not just mere alcohol, being drunk, alcohol consumption. So, and then brought him in to the station, had him, stayed there, for some time. And after a while, he calmed down. And then, I went to talk to him. And he told me he had consumed, a certain type of drug. And that drug takes some time before you really begin to experience,
I was
the
just
impact.
watching a movie last night and I saw that kind of rookies,
Uh-huh.
officers,
Yeah.
and they were trying to restrain. So it just brought me back. This man, he was like a Hulk.
Yeah.
So
Trust me.
and it was a drug.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
it's very difficult, but as a police officer, your job is to behave and react professionally. Every time you go out with the right equipment, and that is what I employ my officers, when they go out. go out with the right equipment. So go out with not just lethal force, but non-lethal force. So your rubber bullets, your shield, your batons, stuff that will allow you to be able to better deal with a situation without escalating it into the use of lethal force. So yes, Sheldon, you just have to be professional. Whether the person is mad or not, you have to just deal with it professionally and try your best to restrain without using, excessive force.
Yeah. But there's it has been said as well that your mental health conditions would include depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and so on. So mental health relates to our ability to cope with stress, manage emotions, and to relate to others. So again, this is why I said it has to take a health professional to differentiate the two on a professional level. And it is good to get help. So if you feel you are stressed, lately you under a lot of stress, lately you feel overwhelmed, lately you just feel stressed, you cannot take on anything, you just feel that your cup is overflowing, it's too much, get help. Don't feel okay, I'm just going through a phase, and that phase will move over. Don't feel that. You need to reach out to get help. And as we were saying earlier, there is EAP. I wish I had brought the numbers with me right now. I will get the numbers, and on my other program, I'm going to give it out. If anybody from EAP is listening on to my program, please send me the numbers or write it up on our screen, please. There is EAP. We have our counselors. There's New Leaf in Vieux Fort. We have other professionals in different communities. So you may not know of an institution, but you may know of an individual counselor you can call, or call your social workers who can also direct you to a counselor and so on. Okay, so always get help. So Sophia Closelma, that's where the trouble lies. Keeping silence about things kill you inside. So again, we address that to say, speak out. And another thing I realized that people do, especially men, we go back to men again, that when the mental health issue is presenting itself, you take drugs to help you cope with
yes,
it.
and
so it's duplicating the issue.
Yes, it's compounding situation. And you mentioned the New Leaf program in Vieux Fort, and that I am very impressed with that program, where they provide free counseling services for a lot of the underprivileged communities in Vieux Fort. And I could tell you a lot of the crime that we experience, in various communities as a result of, that's the way of the young men, and we women too. That's their way of expressing, or communicating their frustrations and their problems that they're experiencing, and that's why I tell you, in high poverty area communities, you have high levels of crime, and the statistics is clear on that, because a lot of those persons, because of the poverty they experience, right, they are disadvantaged, they are abused. And I could tell you, Miss Body, and you I know have a lot of experience in that area, where we have quite a number of broken young men and women in this country, where from early o'clock they were taken advantage of, because their parents could not provide for them. They didn't have the food, they didn't have the relevant, needs. And because of that, somebody in the community who has, is more privileged, but also have bad habits, would prey on them, taking advantage for food, for clothing, for, the little things. And those children grow up not valuing themselves, not valuing, having no self-worth, because within themselves, they're just an object. They're not a human being. And because of that now, all that frustration, all that hatred is built up inside. And our young men communicate, and they communicate very violently. Because, as a police officer, my experience, you never want to take somebody's life. You don't want to be lying down on a bed, thinking of that person you just shot and killed, or that family you just deprived of a father, or a brother, you don't want that. And even more important, you don't want the stress of all the paperwork that comes with it. You have to write a report and you have to go through all kind, go on suspension, or all kind of thing. You don't want to go through that. But then when you see the numbers of homicides we have on average, over the past 10 years, it's been between 60 and 80 homicides every year. And you ask yourself, and there are young men in there who are responsible for multiple homicides. And you ask themselves, how do they feel, knowing that, they've just taken a life? How do you feel, especially when we had this situation in Vieux-Fort where a 2-year-old, I think, was killed? How do you feel, as an individual? What would cause you to want to, take the life of an innocent child? So, and again, it's the brokenness that they experience, then now they communicate it, and they communicate in violent ways.
Okay. So here, Rena Butcher, thank you so much. I think she sent a number, 468-2269, 468-2269. 468-2269. So, Rena, I'm thinking this is the number for the EAP program. So, persons who really need the assistance of the counseling, go ahead and call. If they cannot assist you because it's for public servants, of course, they will redirect you. So, this is the number again, 468-2269. Thank you so very much, Rena Butcher, for that. Just reading some comments from Sophia Closelma. On a whole, men are not open to conversation for help in such areas as health. And of course, Inspector Rennie, you touched on that slightly this morning, and we're going to come back to that. Sheldon, if you don't tell her and she finds out later, then it's hot. But of course, we are going to come back to that and meant to readdress that, because Rena Butcher then said, there is nothing wrong with telling her, but it is more important to choose the point at which you tell her. If you know she is doing better in terms of the paranoia or her mental status, then you can let her know. Be tactful and very true about that. So I was coming to this point to answer Sheldon when Rena answered him by saying that at some point you can tell her, but if you know she's not ready, I would rather that you don't. If it comes out, of course, you can tell her, for such and such a reason, I did not feel the need to tell you to re-traumatize you, so that you could explain. Going back to, you were talking about our young men and all, it just brought me back to a program that I had last week for quality education. And one of the things that my guests brought about, which is very true in our schools, is our communication level. How much are we taught to communicate in schools? And I think this is lacking, because like I was saying to her, that you would watch a movie, listen to shows, and children from other countries and more developed countries at a very young age can express themselves.
Yes.
But in St. Lucia, it is very hard for us to express the young ones to express themselves. So I find from the school age, very young, it is very important to help children express themselves, because going back to Men Communication 101 and said, do you even know how you feel? So some children, do they even know how they feel? I remember whilst doing my degree, there was an exercise for them telling us to see how we feel, use feeling words. And it was so hard for educators themselves to come up with feeling words. So if you don't know how you're feeling, if you don't know what's going on with you, how can you communicate that? And I brought up a list of when you're happy, okay? So you feel playful, contented, things will be interesting for you, you'll be proud, you'll feel accepted, you'll feel powerful, peaceful, trusting, and the list goes on. Okay? It even said aroused, cheeky, free, joyful, and so on. If you're surprised, you feel startled, confused, amazed, excited, shocked, dismayed, delusion, and so on. Bad, if you feel bad, you can be bored. So when you feel bad, you can be bored. Busy, stressed, tired, indifferent, apathetic, pressured, rushed, overwhelmed, out of control, sleepy, unfocused, fearful, scared, anxious, insecure, weak, rejected, threatened, helpless, frightened, again overwhelmed, worried, inadequate, inferior, and it continues. Angry, you can feel let down, humiliated, bitter, mad, aggressive, frustrated, distant, critical. You can feel betrayal, resentful, disrespected, ridiculed, violated, furious, jealous, and so on. Disgusted, disapproving, disappointed, awful, repelled, judgmental, embarrassed, appalled, and so on. Okay, sad. When you feel sad, you can feel lonely, vulnerable, despair, guilty, depressed, hurt, embarrassed, inferior, empty, remorseful, ashamed, powerless, and the list goes on. So it's very important to know how you feel. So persons, if you have problems in relating to your anger or expressing how you feel, of course, Google is our best friend.
Yeah, just reading from the article, emotional expression. It says, women tend to express emotions more openly and are more likely to use conversation to explore and process their feelings. Men may find it more challenging to express emotions and may prefer to focus on fact or action. So, so we always try to find an excuse, I'll do it, or I can tell you, I get pressure all the time to take some vacation. You need some leave, and yeah, I'll do it, I'll do it. But again,
and that is one of the things that article is just saying, that you need to recognize your need.
Yes. But again, as a leader, you believe that there's so much that needs to be done, that, hey, I will, let me get them out of the way, and let me get out of the way, deal with it, and then I'll get some time to relax. But for some reason, it never gets out of the way because there's so much coming every day.
I will tell you something that I've used on so many of my friends, and I tell them because it was traumatic to me. I had a very dear friend dying. She died. A teacher. I'm not sure if you heard of her, from Choiseul. She passed away suddenly. She was getting ready for school. Wow. Very dear friend of mine. And this teacher, let me tell you, would be sick. She would be on sick leave and come. She was teaching grade K, kindergarten. And these were her babies.
Yeah, wow.
And everywhere she went, she had her babies with her. She was sick. She would come in, who will take care of my babies? Who's going to take care of my class? You know how needy they are, and so on. And that day, it's very emotional. And that day, she died. Her report books were open on the chair. She was getting ready for school.
Wow.
And she died. So anytime I hear somebody say, I will have time. Don't. When you die, somebody takes your job.
Yes, definitely.
Somebody else takes
So are you telling me go back to the office and prepare that vacation leave application form right now?
Because somebody else will come in. And I remember this young lady coming to the school. Let me tell you, we almost ran after her and saying that she came to apply for the job. The lady was not buried yet. And she said, I know you have a vacancy because she died.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yes. So please, when you need to take care of yourself, you need to take care of yourself. Don't think that
you're irreplaceable.
You're irreplaceable, or I will have that time. Again, we were saying of the stress points. We were looking at the stress points of when your body starts feeling tired and overwhelmed. Okay? So then you look at the stress points and don't shut them out and think, I'm going through a phase. No, you're not. If your body is speaking to you, listen. All right? And that is a way of you communicating with yourself as well. So when your body speaks, you listen. Okay? And again, Rena Butcher is saying, it is important to take care of you, your mental health, before you can think of taking care of others. All right? So we're after 12. And we are closing up we touched base on so many things, and I am very happy for this enriching discussion with Inspector Ray.
Yeah, it looks like whenever we come together, Miss Mbodime, there is so much to discuss,
Definitely.
And so I think those are the kind of conversation we need to have, real conversations, about the situation that impact each and every one of us on a daily basis. That we have to allow men to understand that, hey, you biologically are not much different to a woman. You may be stronger physically, but mentally, there's not much of a difference. So, take the time out, listen to yourself, express how you feel, and open up, conversate and not just instruct. Create an environment where people feel comfortable coming to you, because again, communication is two-way. There's a sender, receiver. If you communicate and the receiver feels that it is not communicated the proper way, they will respond to you in the based on how they feel that message was sent. So and what you have, if it's not communicated properly, is conflict. So and we see how the conflicts impact our society today.
And it's not about what you say, is
how you say it. Yes.
Because if you're going to de-escalate a situation, you cannot. Somebody's already ramping and raving.
Yes.
You cannot come with this the match the business energy. You cannot do that. You have to simmer down. You have to be in a calm position to be able to calm.
And again, we go to the video with the police officer. The situation was escalating, and it was further escalated by the response.
So you have to be, but it takes a lot.
It takes a lot
to train yourself to do that. So I remember this. I was on a bus as a young girl. I had no kids yet, anything. I remember being maybe a teenager, and I heard this man speaking, and I've never forgotten what he said. I think he was saying that he was married for many years, and something that kept his marriage going is that he and his wife learned not to get angry at the same time. I'm like, huh? He said he and his wife learned not to get angry at the same time. And I've just kept that. Let me tell you, I've not been able to do that. But
I know what have been practiced is that, you guys should never go to bed upset or wake up, upset at each other. Try your best to, if you are going to bed, find a resolution to the problem before you go to bed. Because you will never forgive yourself if you and your partner are in a quarrel or fight and you're like so upset that you'll go in the separate rooms, and then boom, tomorrow morning the person wakes up, or you wake up to find your partner dead, and then you never got a chance to, So you should never go to bed upset.
So again, men, I will come. Inspector Rainey, do not come for me. I'm going to say, men, I'm going to say to you that yes, we know that you are this person with this ego, and you are macho. Yes, we know that, but how is this really helping? So it's okay to have your ego, it's okay to be macho, but when it comes to taking care of you, your ego and your machoism should take a step back. Okay? Taking care of you, you cannot take care of somebody else if you don't take care of you. So communicating is taking care of you. When you communicate effectively by reaching out to 468-2269 to say, hello, I think I have an issue I need to deal with. You are not being weak. You are not being a sissy. You're not being other things they call you. You are being brave. You are being strong. And you are being even more of a leader because you are leading by example. So, of course, you are taking care of you. By you sitting in your relationship with your wife or your madam, your girlfriend, whatever, and saying, okay, let us have a conversation. I've noticed that you're moping around for 2 days now, whatever. What is really happening? When you ask that question, before you ask that question, men, train yourself to be in a mental state to take it. We know that women talk, we have mouths on us. So be in the mental state to take it. It may not be your fault, whatever is happening to her, but a bashing may come. Oh, and yes, we give it. So when you are coming to ask what is wrong, be in a mental state to take it. So just
The challenging part about it is that women are emotional and hormonal creatures, right? That are so unpredictable that you never know, how to deal with, how they will react or respond to situations. But just to support what you said, I agree with you. But also a small caveat in there is that women also must understand that they must build their man or build their partner, build their brother, build
most
their,
definitely.
be
Definitely.
that support mechanism, be
Mhm.
that voice of encouragement, and irrespective whether it's good or bad times, because you can be during the good times, that support and that partner, but then when boy something goes sour, you'll go back and dig everything and throw it in his face. You don't remember when you were sick? I was the one taking care of you, and you blah 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 blah
That
blah blah
is,
blah.
and that is not good behavior. I get where somebody might come to say that when I was sick, I take care of you, because it depends on the situation at hand. It's not good to be. It's not good to do. Okay, not at all. It shouldn't be a thing of persons coming back with the past, because the past is always a yes, but it's not good to use it again because you make a situation worse by doing that. But of course, if a situation comes that I have been there for, let's look at colleague. We're moving away from relationship for a bit, right? I've been there for my colleague for a while. This colleague and I, we're close and so on. And when she is sick, I will cover for her, check on her, take her to lunch. Sometimes she doesn't have lunch, and be there, be a real colleague, a real friend to her. And something happens. For example, you made a mistake, and of course your supervisor comes in and you throw that person under the bus. Okay, you throw that person under the bus, where maybe you could have covered for the
Right.
person, or maybe said something different and you did not. Your first emotion would come back to all what I have done for you.
Mhm.
And in that instance, you want to remind that person all what I have done
Done
for
for
you,
you.
and today
Okay,
you are doing that to me. Okay, so it's not a thing sometimes of we want to hurt you and we want to reproach you, but it's a thing of sometimes reminding you how much I have been there for you, and today this is what you do or how you handle that situation. So again, it's all about verbal and non-communicable, verbal and
Non-verbal
non-verbal
communication.
communication. So it all boils down to that. So it depends on the situation and how a situation comes about, because it happens in the workplace, it happens at home, and so on. So we just have to build our communicative skills and communicative strategies.
Yeah, and I agree. And you spoke a lot about being able to communicate with your partner, your colleague. But it's also important as parents to be able to communicate with your children.
Your children.
And by you communicating with them, they develop the habit of themselves learn how to communicate. So, for example, my kids, when I, at the end of the day, I ask them, "How was your day?" It's always good to ask. Oh yeah, it was good.
Most definitely.
They will tell you it was good, but you have a tweak little question. So you ask, "What was the highlight of the day? What exciting stuff you did? What, what made you happy today, and or what made you sad, or did anything affect you today?" When you are able to use those words, it now allows a child now to be able to respond better. How was your day? It was fine. What was the highlight of your day? Oh, Daddy, we had this project during the class, and we had so much fun doing it, and this person did that, and so it's important that you know how to bring out that communication from the person that you're trying to communicate
I'll
with.
be a devil's advocate here. Sometimes a husband comes home and the wife will ask, "How was your day?" And he will answer, "I had a good day, it was all right." And he is already coming home agitated because he did not have a good day. But the wife is asking, "How was your day?" So to cut her off, he goes, "It was okay. I had a good day, it was okay." But she's picking up on the energy
Yeah.
of it was not a good day. So she seeks to go further to delve further. "But I just told you I had a good day. So what do you want again?"
Well, again, is how do you get him to communicate without agitating him further? So
It may be
You know.
that just by asking again, but you're saying that you had a good day, but the way you're saying it, the way you're speaking is not
Well, so
communicating that
here's
you had a
what
good day.
here's what I would do. If I realize that hey, my partner comes home and they're agitated and asks how was your day, and the response, was not what I would like. I would be a little more tactful, and I would ask them how was the day. I would come with a different approach and tell them, hey, you are very special to me, and I appreciate you. I just want you to know that, no matter what the circumstance or situation, just know that, I am there for you. That now would now put them in that frame where, hey, there's a support system. And then now they may choose to open up. But you might have
But
a
I'm
bad day and you
coming
keep on.
back to, I want you to help me. I want you to help me help listeners here. How do we do the first situation? In you come home, your wife asks you how was your day, and you're angry and you're shouting like, I've told you my day was okay. First, if she says okay, you say your day was okay, she leaves it alone. Then you come back later on and say, you see, you don't even know your husband. I told you my day was okay, and that was it for you. You realize I was not okay. You still said you left it alone. Okay.
Yeah, so
And if she-
but you need to change the approach because you have picked up, because you need to know your partner, like you said.
Mhm.
You've picked up, if the you go bring some juice for the gentleman and let him know that he's appreciated, and irrespective of what he's going through, that you have his back. That will, allow him to open up,
Very good. Good
to
point.
open up.
That you don't just go and especially if he lashes out like, but I told you my day is okay. Blah, blah, blah." You realize there's a problem. You don't feed his energy. You do not feed the energy.
Yeah.
Whether it's your wife or your husband, you do not feed that energy. You step back. Okay. Oh my. Okay. You step back. And like Inspector Rennie said later on, you can go with some juice or whatever. You know your spouse,
Yeah,
what your spouse
like,
likes.
yep.
And go and say, here's some tea or here's some juice or biscuit, whatever she likes or he likes. And then try to communicate differently to de-escalate that
Situation.
situation.
Yeah.
So again, great job, Inspector Rennie.
Well, like I said, I'm not a psychiatrist, so but a lot has to do with personal experiences.
Yes.
So yeah, you learn as you go. But again, it's for us to understand our partners and understand the people we interact with.
Okay, all right.
What is so funny?
The look I got. So every time I'm going past the time, I would get the look that says, you need to stop. So I got it. So again, every good thing comes to an end. Thank you
Definitely.
so very much, our listeners out there. I really did enjoy the session. It was very informative. And thank you again, especially to Rena Butcher, Sophia Closelma, and Sheldon Lionel for all your comments and your interaction. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me on your show, Ms. Bordiamet. It's always a pleasure being,
Pleasure having you.
on your show. We have a good working relationship also. So I guess that's what really allows us to be able to communicate